That's Hanukkah.
Seems like it's a big day. Finally, it's a big day.
Twerski, we said yesterday that can I check that for me? We said yesterday his question was based on that Yosef's cut off the story that Yehuda's cut off. But I'm wondering about that because Yosef is known as the tzaddik. Yehuda's known as the Baal Tshuva. We say that the Mokom Shabbali Tshuva only the Ein Tzaddikim. So I would think maybe that in a certain sense you're cut off than Yosef.
Interesting angle. Trying to remember. I can't bring it up. This question that Rabbi Michel was asking yesterday about Mashiach ben Yosef coming. Where Yosef weeps about the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash that's going to be in the territory of Binyamin. So it says Savarov. That's why he wept on his throats, which implies two Batei Mikdash. Wept on although he says people out Savrei, so that's the plural, and it says that Yosef wept on Savarov, which is, I'm not sure why that's singular, which is the Mishkan Shilei, which was in the Chelik, was in the portion of Yosef, and that was destroyed. So I think Rashi in Shir HaShirim, where they're praising the throat of Klal Yisrael, Knesset Yisrael. So Rashi says that refers, the throat refers to the Beis Hamikdash. So the Sforim say that the reason that that's the case is because the Beis Hamikdash is the connection between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael in the same way that the throat is a connection between the brain and the heart. So that's the metaphor, is the symbol of the throat, is because that's the connection between Hashem and Knesset Yisrael. And they talk about the fact that that the Golus of Mitzrayim, they call it a Golus Hadas, and that what happened was that that Klal Yisrael, let's talk about what that word means. So Das is referenced as connection in the way in which it's used to represent intimacy, where Adam Yoda is Chava Ishtay, Adam knew, the biblical description of intimacy is knowing. So just that concept is that there can't be any intimacy unless there's knowing. The more you know a person, the more you're capable of being responsive to what those person's needs are, the greater the possibility for intimacy. So intimacy directly corresponds to the level of knowledge. So das is the word that's used in the Torah to describe an ideal level of intimacy. And similarly, das is that function where the mind connects with the heart, such that the avodah of a person in tefillah and in mitzvahs and in learning is a full-hearted. It's a whole experience that the person is there, not just intellectually, but the person is there in a way in which his intellect is integrated. It becomes real. So some of the Chabad Sforim, when it wants to help us understand the function of das, so they use the following example. You have two scholars, both of whom are studying a particular tribe in Africa. So one of them does all the research, reads all the papers, finds out everything he possibly can about this tribe. He's going to write a dissertation about this tribe, and he finds out all the life cycle events and how they celebrate them, what their rituals are, and what they eat, and what their agriculture is, and what the weather's like, and what their lifespan is, and what the climate is like. I mean, everything possible about this tribe. There's another such researcher who also studies this particular tribe, but he picks himself up and he travels to Africa and he lives amongst them for several years. And he comes back. So you now have these two individuals, both of whom, it might be said, have an equal amount of information about this tribe. Then one day they open up the newspaper and there's a report in the newspaper about the fact that there was some sort of a disaster and the whole tribe was wiped out. Student number one, whose relationship with this tribe was academic, he'll probably see it with some sense of sadness. But the person who lived amongst them will have a feeling. His feeling, he'll have a personal feeling of, I knew these people. Not just I knew everything about them, but I knew them, and consequently there's a real sense of loss and grief. So they said that's the difference between knowing, for example, you know that there is a Rabbi Michel, and you know that he's a Kol Yachol, and he's omnipotent and omniscient, and we have everything in our heads. But the thing that turns our feelings on is this quality of das, in which a person kind of walks with this knowledge in a way in which he integrates it so that it becomes part of his reality. So you have they told the story of the Rabbi Shmelk of Nikolsburg, who made Abdullah, and in the company of his Hasidim, and after Abdullah he sat down and he said, "Hey, Rabbi Shalom, if only the shivcha would come back. So the Hasidim were, wow, must be some deep Kabbalistic thing. They ran off to the Besmedlers to research what might mean, the shivcha. Who's the shivcha and what should mean coming back, and especially what's the connection with Havdalah. Anyway, they came back, they had a whole theory, and they started to tell Rabbi Shmelka, is this what you meant? He said, no. He said, my Rebbetzin had a shivcha, used to come and clean up the house, and she quit. So, and she's pretty distraught about it. So I was, when it come back to the weekday, and I was just thinking, the Rebbetzin is going to be really upset about the fact that she doesn't have help, somebody to help her clean up from Shabbos. So he said to them, he said, if you don't have that kind of relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom, where everything is a topic for connecting with them, so even something like the fact that the shivcha quit is something that you would talk to him about. So there, if the Rebbeinu Shalom is a real companion in your life, so that you're on a constant dialogue with him, and so then he becomes real. But we have this bifurcation where when we come into shul, maybe he's without. I'm not so sure that he's real when we come to shul, but it's at least we're talking to him in shul, and then when we walk outside, then it's kind of like it's a different world.
Obviously, all of us have a different relationship, a different intimate relationship with Hashem. But is there a paradigm in terms of what we should envision in our heads, like that of a child to a parent, that of a child to a rebbe, that of a person to his friend? Like when speaking to Hashem on an intimate level, what paradigm should we start with down here in terms of how to speak to him and how to address him?
I don't think we can separate these issues. I don't think we can think of we say Avinu Malkeinu. And we try to maintain an awareness, a consciousness of the fact that we are at once Bani Matim L'Shem Likechem, and we're also of the Hashem, we're also Avodim. So, I think when we talk about Avodim, we're talking about not about slaves, we're talking about servants. The difference between a slave and a servant. So we're talking about the fact that we are, at one and the same time, we are children of Hashem and we're servants of Hashem. And both of them are predicates of our essence. And we need to know that we have to be mindful of a child will take certain liberties because he knows he has the indulgence of his parent. An Eved will be much more cautious. So and there's a certain tension over there that exists between those two mindsets. So we're at once we are at once children of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we know that there's a certain, that relationship it gives us, in a certain sense, a very special a very special kind of caring, a very special kind of attention, a very special kind of expectation of that Rabbi Michel is going to, he's going to try in some way to work with us. On the other hand, anybody who says that Hashem is someone who dismisses our wrongdoing and overlooks it is making a big mistake. So we have this. We have a necessity at once to be in awe and reverence of Hashem, and at the same time to be able to experience love. V'ata Yisrael. And now Israel, what does Hashem ask of you? Kim lira, that you should fear Him. So they say that, I believe they say about Rabbi Zisha of Anapola that he said, something to the effect of that he wanted to reach the level where trying to remember the expression, something like where he wouldn't fear him anymore. It was very well known that Zisha was the quintessential Yirei Hashem. The Rebbe of Rizhin was a descendant of the great Maggid, the successor to the Baal Shem Tov. He was a great-grandson of the Maggid. So he once commented, he said, we find from the Talmidei HaMaggid that they repeat all kinds of Torahs in his name. He said, Reb Zisha, who was one of his primary Talmidim, he was one of the oldest of the Talmidim, he doesn't have, you don't find that he repeated anything in the name of the Maggid. So he says, how come, why is that? So he said, because it was related to him that when the Talmidim, the Chassidim of the Maggid would be sitting around waiting for that, so the Maggid would begin to say the Torah. As soon as he would say whatever, Vayomer Hashem al Moshe, as soon as he would say a pasuk, Reb Zisha would begin to tremble. He'd begin to tremble and shake. Vayomer Hashem, he would begin to shake and tremble until such point as he fell off his chair. And he would be on the ground, and he'd be shoveled and trembling. He'd be screaming. So they picked him up because he was disturbing the shir. And they picked him up and they carried him to another room. And they could hear him in the other room that he would be carrying on Vayomer Hashem. And the Maggid would finish the Torah. The minute the Maggid would finish saying the Torah, Reb Zisha in the other room would stop trembling. So the Rishon said, he says, Reb Zisha, as soon as the Maggid said the words, he immediately grasped the essence of what the Maggid was trying to generate in. He said, but he never heard the Torah. So he said he couldn't repeat anything because all he got was he got the impact without the information. They say that Rabbi Shmelka, when he became Talmud of the Maggid, so he was a goyin. He was a goyin in Nigla. So he came to Rabbi Zisha and he said, I have a deal for you. You'll teach me Nister, you'll teach me Kabbalah, and I'll teach you Nigla. So Rabbi Zisha said, fine. So they sat down and he opened up the Gemara. And he started saying, Me'emosai, Kirinis HaShema, the first mission and Berachas. Me'emosai, Kirinis HaShema about it. So Rabbi Shmuel said to him, okay, from when you say, when do you begin, when is the Chiyuv of Kriyas Shema at night? From when? So Rabbi Zisha said to him, that's how you translated that? He said, how then? He said, Me'emosai, from when? No, Me'emosai means from Ema, from fear. Me'emosai, how are you supposed to read the Shema? Me'emosai, well, you're supposed to be trembling and fear. And he began to shake and he fell off the chair again. And Rabbi Shmuel said, forget it. The deal is off.
I heard a different version that he fell off his chair and he said, what happened? He said, the first word, what? He said, I read it as, how do you read it? He said, I read it Me'imas Yud.
Oh, Me'imas Yud. Okay, whatever, it's the same message.
It's the same.
Anyway, whatever it is.
Rabbi Heber, when he started teaching Nefesh HaChaim, he said Das, Rabbi Yitzchak, you'll do this better. Das was, in the context of the spheres, Das was, we don't even discuss Das.
So, Das has a peculiar position. When in the spheres, so when you count the spheres, so you can either start from Keser, or you start from Chachma. If you start from Keser, Das is not there. If you start from Chachma, Keser isn't there, and then Das is there. So that there's a reason for that, which has to do with what's called Pnimis HaKeser, Chitonius HaKeser. So there's a
I'm saying it's the same element of Das that we're talking about, and that's in a spiritual context. Rabbi Zisha understood that was the Das he was dealing with.
Well, for the kind of Das that we're looking at is the kind of Das which allows for a full connection between what we know and the fact that we actually it's real. Because as long as it's just in the head and it's not in the heart, so it's not real. I mean, we know it and we recognize it, but we're not living it. When we're feeling it, that's when it becomes true. So they say that in Mitzrayim, it's not that Klal Yisrael was completely unaware of the fact that there was a God and that Elu, that the objection at the Kriyas Yamsuf was, why are you favoring Klal Yisrael? They're the same idolaters. The Klal Yisrael had they knew that there was there was this Golus Hadas. Moshe Rabbeinu was considered the representative, the advocate of Das. He was the one who was the way they call it is the Das of Klal Yisrael. He was the one who was able to bring Klal Yisrael to this quality of Das. And they say that Paro represented the complete opposite of Das, because Paro represented someone who tried to introduce this barrier between what Klal Yisrael knew, what Klal Yisrael felt. So you're going to work them to death, and they'll never really be able to have any opportunity to reflect, introspection, any kind of solitude where they would be able to, to kind of bring what they had received it as part of their the tradition from the patriarchs, they would never be able to make it real. So they say that the letters of Paro make up the word Oref. Ha-Oref, which is the neck. And that the Paro represented the interruption. The Tzavor, which is the connection between the brain and the heart, between wisdom and feeling. So Paro was that Oref. He was the
He connected me to that's what brought him down. Hashem hardened his heart. The Rambam says he gave him the courage of his own conviction.
right.
That he was just, his own people were telling him, are you crazy? Let's just get rid, let him go. What are you doing?
Right.
His heart told him to, you take Hitler. Hitler was more dedicated to killing Jews than beating Russia on the Russian front. He kept pulling soldiers off the Russian front. Generals kept saying, we're going to lose the war. Because you want to kill these Jews. And you lost the war on the Russian front. And he not so hardened to kill the Jews, he made one war.
Is there an extra hay?
Ha-Oref?
Is it already
No. Ha-Oref.
Oh, ha.
Ha-Oref.
So where's with this idea, how do we understand Kshay Ovet? Kshay Ovet.
I'm sure if there's a lack of that connection.
I'm sure it could be like you mentioned, but so far as this connection, Kshay or it could be that strong connection.
Yeah, the Zelu Masah, So we have Yosef and Binyamin weeping reciprocally on the neck, on the tzavor, on the Mishkan Shiloi or the Batei Migdosh. So, on the Harabayas, there was a very interesting boundary, because the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Heichel, was on the territory of Binyamin. The Lishkas HaGozis, where the Sanhedrin sat, which was right near there, or adjacent to it, was in the territory of Yehuda. At Kriyas Yamsuf, so this has Tillim in the back. Yeah. So where is that? Right. We'll search for that, which kapitel it's in. It's a reference to Wayan Amoritz is afraid of Shabbos. Samachas. So over here, it says, Shom Binyamin Tzoir Rodem, Sori Yehuda Rigmosam. So this is referring to Kriyas Yamsuf. That the Sforim say that this particular pasuk, Samaches, is referring to Kriyas Yamsuf, where when Moshe Rabbeinu told them, move, go into the sea, that the Shvatim started to say, like, who's going to start, where's it going to go? And Binyamin just ran into the sea. And Yehuda, the tribe of Yehuda, pelted them with stones, like, come back. You guys don't have a right to go first. So Yehuda ended up going in first with Nachshon ben Aminadab, who was the Nasi of Yehuda. So, what was transpiring over here? What was transpiring over here was that there was some consideration over here about who's going to march into the sea. Binyamin was a tribe of passion. Go to the sea, we're going. Huh? Right. Whereas Yehuda was a Malchus, so Yehuda felt that this was an improper procedure. The Malchus, deliberation, discipline, rule, order comes first. So they pelted them, saying, but the Rebbeinu Shalom, in a certain sense, in recognition of the fact that Binyamin has this, this passion, said, okay, the Beis HaMikdash, KSY belongs where this, where you move on the basis of your devotion, and there's, it overrides everything. On the other hand, the Sanhedrin, which has to function on deliberating and processing things in an orderly, disciplined way, belongs to Yehuda, because that's so the Sanhedrin is in the portion of Yehuda. The KSY Doshim, which is the place of Avodah, that's in the, but they're connected. They're connected to each other, and Sanhedrin has to be right next to the KSY Doshim, because the two are inseparable.
The tikkun of Yosef in Yisod.
What?
Yisod in
Right.
Yosef is Yisod, it's a tikkun of passion.
Right.
Whereas Yehuda succumbed to Tama.
It has to travel.
Which sphere is Yehuda? Which sphere is Yehuda? Which sphere is connected to Yehuda?
Maybe it's Malchus. I mean, David is Malchus.
That's so.
Rabbi Michel said he had the same issue with David. Moshe.
No.
And what?
Malchus is a separate.
Rabbi Heber was saying, I think it was this the other day, that in the Malchus is in the land, so that David's struggle with Bathsheba is on the most visceral level. It's the biggest tikkun.
discussing the tzavar, so the Rebbe's picking the emphasis of Yosef and Binyamin, but what about Yosef on Yaakov, and what about Yaakov on Esav? There was the tzavar there also. Yeah, rather Esav and Yaakov.
So we can understand why Asa would want to bite him in the neck.
And there's Rashbi.
Huh?
And there's Rashbi, is the one that says, "Nichbul Eis Nichbul Yachad."
Right. By Yosef and Yaakov, so there it also says it says also he fell on his neck.
Yosef is also, that's when Yaakov leaves. No, when Yosef, because Yosef was the tikkun for, he's the one who's able to
Yeah,
burn out.
let's say that.
Asa, I guess maybe Asa was also passionate. And Rahava is a flame, is also passionate.
But what?
Saying Yaakov leaves love on when Esau was born, because he's
And Yosef was born.
and Yosef represents the tikkun of passion. So and that's the lahava that's able to devour Esau.
That's the energy that
And
is able to.
Esau's rishus is in passion.
Right.
And Haresa, we said, was the civilization.
No, but it certainly is today. I think probably our primary challenge in Avodah is this Galus Hadas, that we have great difficulty connecting up what we know intellectually and make it awaken our hearts, so that we daven with passion, that we learn with passion, that we do mitzvahs with passion.
Does that come down to discipline?
What?
Does that come down to discipline? Like, my grandparents, they didn't particularly have personalities, so to speak, that were disciplined. They were disciplined people.
Who are
Does it come down to discipline?
right?
Like, for instance, I'm talking generation. Like, my grandparents did not particularly have, like, disciplined personalities, so to speak. But they were very disciplined people because their generation was disciplined. They, they controlled their spending. They lived on cash, not on credit cards like we do. Like, they were very, and I'm speaking because my grandparents, like, all of my friends growing up, their grandparents, World War I veterans, or old Europeans, there was a certain self-control savior that they had that manifest themselves in their discipline. And it wasn't like, they weren't like OCD, but
Right.
there was a certain, like, but our generation, we have disciplined people, but our generation is not disciplined at all, and my kids is even worse. Does it come down to, like, discipline in terms of das and tefillos?
Right. No, I mean, it would be nice if when there was less discipline, there would be more passion. But I don't think that's happening. I don't think our children have more passion than we do, or our previous generation.
I wouldn't say my grandparents were particularly passionate either.
Rav Tauber used to define it as different generations. As, for example, my generation is not my kids. The Avraham Avinu generation, the self-made man, is the Baalei Tshuva. Whereas he says his father, he had this tremendous yura for his father. In fact, I think, if I'm not misquoting him, he says the only reason he didn't go off after the war was because of the yura for his father, which was the Pachad Yitzchak generation. So it's just a different driving force.
It's like a different culture.
This is the show many times talking about the ultimate goal is the Ahava, but he brings the Zohar with the Kadmon is Yerushalayim. Knows that if you go directly to Ahava, then it's Pesukim. So the Ahava has to come through a discipline of Yira. Maybe that's the Hashevos Elavecha, the Yadata, the Hashevos. That the Ahava that bypasses the discipline is dangerous.
I started telling this thing about Rabbi Michel before with Yira, so he said that an ordinary person, let's say, be afraid of a policeman. A policeman would be afraid of the chief of the police. The chief of police would be afraid of maybe the mayor. The mayor would be afraid of the governor. The governor would be afraid of the president. So, at a certain point, you have someone who, let's say, he's a friend of the mayor. So he has a certain comfort with the mayor, and so he's not afraid of the mayor, but he's afraid of the governor. Someone who has a relationship with the governor is not afraid of the governor, but he's afraid of the president. Someone who is a friend of the president might not be afraid of the president, but he would be afraid of losing his relationship with the president. So he said that's what it says, that Rabbi Michel said that he wanted to have the kind of fear where he wouldn't be afraid. Because he wanted to have the kind of fear of I have such a great relationship with Rabbi Michel. I'm afraid of losing that relationship.
Living without fear. Some fear. Not afraid of anybody. I'm not afraid of
So I'm talking about the fact that while the greatest expression of fear is what's called Yiras HaRomimos, which is awe and reverence for Hashem's awesome presence, but you still have to have Yiras HaOnish. Everybody still has to have this element of being afraid of the fact that God holds us accountable and punishes for wrongdoing. And that's because we are this composite of a neshama and a body. So there are some times when the neshama is fully capable of carrying the day, but there are some times when the body has its moments where it kind of eclipses the radiance of the neshama, and the only thing that keeps us back then is the Yiras HaOnish. So even great tzaddikim need both.